Well, you know how McDonald's has that chicken McNugget slurry to make chicken McNuggets?
Yeah,
we make
slime.
the slurry. Yeah,
Right.
we make the slurry.
Yeah, if you bake it at 450 degrees for 20 minutes, you get a nugget.
Yeah, you just gotta chop up the slurry.
All right. Well, what else? Oh, dude, so I listened to... I'm actually ashamed to admit that I listened to like 4 hours of Kyle Rittenhouse testimony today.
Oh my god.
And, dude, so much. I never do that. I'm not the guy, I'm not one of these people that like sits around and hounds these court cases and like listens to all this shit. But it came up when I was on TikTok. It came up on like the ABC Live TikTok, and then I just got hooked and I brought it up on my computer and I just sat there and I watched and they would go on recess and I would wait for the recess to be over.
Ooh, I hope they're done soon.
Dude, I don't know. They might still not be done. I'm assuming they are, but
yeah, I think generally there's like a time that court ends at a certain point, maybe
probably
like 5 p.m. or something.
Probably, right. And so
maybe four.
They're in, was it Wisconsin? So
yeah,
hour at 6 o'clock here. They probably ended there, but they were going forever, and that was really.
Is this the first week of trial?
Yeah, I think this is day 6, but this is the first day of Kyle himself being put on the stand, which is kind of insane. Like, he must have demanded the opportunity because no defense attorney in their right mind would put someone like that up on the stand. You know, but he did, and I will say I was like torn between being impressed and like totally disheartened by the entire thing. Like, there were points where I felt like the prosecuting attorney was like asking really poignant, really great questions, but then there were also points when it was really clear that like he was doing like a very CNN thing. Like, he was just like hitting these inflammatory points, even though they were really clearly not relevant to court proceedings.
He probably knows everybody's watching.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it was very clearly a TV trial, and the judge in that case, man, he.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure they're a FedSoc judge.
Yeah, which I'm embarrassed to admit that I had to like Google because I didn't know what the fuck that meant. But I the Federalist Society, I now know. And so for the listener, because I just learned this, the Federalist Society is one of the leading legal societies in the United States of America. It's sort of like a fraternity for lawyers and judges.
I mean, it's basically like this like decades long, basically like conspiracy to like yank the courts as far right as possible.
Sure. Yeah, they're a heavily conservative and libertarian leaning coalition of legal practitioners, and they have a massive influence over, so officially once you become a judge, you have to you can't be a member of those societies officially anymore once you're a judge, but like if you're a lawyer who was a member and you become a judge,
but you still go to all the dinners with them. You know
right,
what I mean?
Right. So once I saw that, and it made a lot of sense because it was like pretty clear that this guy was. I mean, he's literally acting like he's Kyle Rittenhouse's like protector uncle. Like
before the trial, they said that the prosecutors can't call this dude's victims. That he shot dead. You couldn't call them victims. You could call them rioters or looters, but you couldn't call them victims.
They were sticking to the term demonstrators. I noticed that Kyle never called them rioters or looters. He called them demonstrators.
Yeah.
He also claims to have been menaced with a chain by one of the men that he shot dead. However, one thing I was proud of is that during cross-examination, he was sort of talked into a corner, and they're like, did he ever menace you physically with anything, including his own body? And he was like, well, no.
Yeah.
Just his words. And the guy's like, cool. And then you shot him.
He was standing there looking at me menacingly.
Yeah. He said he wanted to fight me. And he's like, so then he tried to fight you, right? And he's like, well, no.
No, I just shot him.
What, did he touch any part of your body? No, he tried to grab my gun. It's like, yeah, well, sounds like you were aiming it at him, so that's reasonable. Did he touch your body? No, at no point did he touch my body. And it's like, okay. So a man who was in the last moments of his life tried to knock the gun out of your hands that you were going to shoot him with.
And then you shot him.
Did nothing else. Like, didn't swing a chain at you, didn't fucking try to stab you or shoot you back or anything. And then you shot him dead, and like, so this is self-defense. Because, I mean, I'm telling you right now, man, if I had nothing but, fuck it, even if I had like a knife or something and someone points a gun at me, the first thing I'm trying to do, knowing I'm about to get shot, is knock that gun out of that person's hand.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
that seems like it would just be like a, like not even like a it would just be like your body reacting.
Yeah, it's like a normal. That's self-defense. So, like, they're trying to spin it that, like, Kyle Rittenhouse was defending himself with an AR-15 against a man who, like, at most, he's saying he had a chain, right? So let's assume that he had a chain. If you have a rifle, you ever heard the expression, don't bring a chain to a gunfight? No, because that's stupid as fuck. Like, you know, nobody with a chain is a threat to anybody with a fucking assault rifle. So, I mean, what do I know? It's not an assault rifle. It's a modified hunting rifle. But anyway, it was really disheartening. It was, like, not fun. I'm pretty sure this kid's going to fucking walk.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody thinks that. I mean, it's just the way these things fucking go.
Yep. He's not going to do a fucking second of jail time, not even for, like, aggravated manslaughter or anything like that. Like, he's just going to get off, and it's going to suck balls, and fuck him.
Sure is, bud.
You know. Anyway.
Yeah, although his crying was the funniest fucking shit on earth.
Oh, I loved it.
It looked like one of those videos of somebody who pretends to have a seizure after getting a vaccine. Sure. Like, you know, that terrible acting where they're just and they're just like shaking, and it's like not the way that anybody has ever had a seizure.
He was clearly coached, and
at the end he peeks over at the jury.
Yeah, right. He's like,
at the end. I don't know if he caught that.
Did you guys all say
like
that?
Right at the end, he was just like, "Yo, what the fuck are they looking?"
Cool. No, I'm good now. Yeah. Anyway, very disheartening. I'm probably going to end up following it more closely now because I found the courtroom drama so riveting, but also so fucking frustrating. It's just like really shitty. I hated it.
Yeah.
But I loved it. But I hated it.
I loved it and I hated it.
What else? Anything else?
No, I did have some stuff that I wanted to talk about. I forgot to write it down. I don't know, whatever. Fucking,
okay.
So, totally forget.
All right. Hey man, that's reasonable. You worked how long of a day?
13 hours.
Wow, look at you.
My dinner was a Reese's Fast Break right before this.
Nice, dude. Well, hey, I mean, frankly, a Reese's Fast Break is a good-ass candy bar. So
good ass.
If you're going to have a candy bar for dinner, you picked a good-ass candy bar to have.
Yeah, dude. It kicked ass, bro.
Yeah, and it won't give you fucking hot diarrhea, so...
No, dude,
you're already one-upping
this
me.
Guy.
All right, well, we do have one advertisement today.
All right, let's hear it.
Yeah, we got a phone call... like 12 hours before we recorded today. And it's actually it's pretty straightforward, but I was given just the transcript to read.
Okay.
And it's from a guy named Jeff, and Jeff sells women's fur coats. And
hello, Jeff with women's fur coats.
Yeah. So apparently Jeff repurposes fur coats that he finds in the homes of people where he provides hospice care. And he just wanted our listeners to know that if you or someone you know has fur coats and is either dying or like ill or like a little under the weather, he will come to your house and take care of you. But specifically if you have fur coats. And in the unlikely and untimely event that you do pass, he just asks that you donate the coats in exchange for his services. So I've actually currently got a bit of a cold. I've got him coming over tomorrow because I've got 15 or 16 fur coats in my house. And I'm hoping that he's able to, I'll give him at least one or two of them, but I'm hoping that he's able to help me pull through. I did ask him about his success rate. He was unwilling to give me those figures just because he said he didn't have his spreadsheets available.
What's his business model? Wait, what? What the fuck does he do? if you've got fur coats,
I'm fucking so goddamn.
Do you have a fur coat? I do not have a fur coat.
Okay,
no.
Well, so then you don't have to worry about it. But if you've got a fur coat, if you've got a fur coat, Jeff will come to your house, and if you're sick. If you've got a fur coat and you're sick, Jeff will come to your house and he'll provide you with hospice care. Now, you don't have to be dying. You can be just ill, but he'll provide you with end of life care regardless, and just kind of make your transition into your eventual end of life easier. In exchange for one or all of your coats, and you have to sign. It's really simple, really. You just like sign a piece of paper and you say, "I'll give you all my coats if I die."
So you pawn your coat to a guy if you're sick.
Yeah, and very few people pull through.
Okay.
So I don't want to like accuse him of anything, but it's possible that Jeff kills people for their coats. But that being said, like if you're sick and like you've got all these fur coats, like it's worth the gamble, I think.
How does he pay his rent?
I'm sorry?
How does he pay his rent?
He's a homeowner.
Okay.
Yeah, he inherited a house from his
he
grandmother.
Sells these fur coats?
Coincidentally, the house that he inherited came with a lot of fur coats.
Okay.
He makes his money mostly on the coats, which I feel like is a...
that's a good way to make money, man.
He makes his money mostly on the coats.
That's a fucking good-ass way to make money, dude.
He makes his money mostly on the coats.
Taking people's coats.
Yeah, he inherited 50 fur coats and a house from his grandmother, and coincidentally, around the same time, it started recognizing the value in fur coats, vintage fur coats, and so he started offering end-of-life care to the ill or slightly under the weather. And he's turned a pretty massive profit. So
yeah.
Obviously, he has this uncanny way of being able to tell when your minor illness will develop into a fatal disease.
That's a good ass fucking skill to have, dude.
Yeah, he's like a dowsing rod, but for people that are gonna end up dying.
Kicking the bucket.
Yeah. I don't know how he knows, but there's clearly some kind of special skill there.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jeff. What's his name?
It's just Jeff. That's all he told me.
Jeff. Thank you, Jeff, with the fur coat.
Yeah.
I will be sure, if I ever buy a fur coat and then develop a minor illness or possibly stubbed toe, I will let you know.
Yeah. And he'll be sure to take exquisite care of you for your remaining days. But you got to sign over those fur coats, though. That's the whole thing. So
yeah. Jeff is here for you.
Yeah,
in your time of need.
He doesn't take cash. It's fur coats only. So.
Keep the fucking cash.
I know it seems kind of weird, but maybe almost improvisational. But I just that's what he said to say. So that's what I said.
No, it's a good ass fucking thing to say.
And what's funny is that all of that was read verbatim off of a written paper. The way that he wrote that ad was very stream of consciousness.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, Joe.
Yeah, no problem, man. I mean, I'm sure he would say no problem. He wrote that on the end there, too. He's like, if he says thank you, just make sure you, just no problem. It's fine. All right.
So now, after all that, hey everybody, welcome to the Left Unread podcast. Yep. I'm Evan. This is my co-host Jeff. I mean Cam.
So, yeah, no, Jeff is a different guy. Totally an actual different guy. I'm Cam. Not Jeff.
Look at me. Yeah, with these tongue twisters of names.
Oh boy! Somehow I managed to mistake my co-host Cam for this totally real guy named Jeff, who, in advance wrote us an ad. What a fucking guy!
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. Okay, great. Yep. Let's start the actual show.
All right, here we are. Okay. Welcome.
Yep.
Yeah, so what do you have in store for us today?
So, what's that?
I said, what do you have in store for us today?
Yeah, so we are going back to a series that we haven't touched in a while. Although I did start writing this episode a couple months ago. So we're going back to the American Utopia series.
Cool.
Alan Dulles' American Utopia. So, as a brief reminder, last time we talked, we kind of just went over, in the first episode, the business plot in 1930s America, when a bunch of Wall Street perverts tried to coup FDR. And then we kind of talked about some of the more nefarious things that some of these same perverts were doing towards the end of World War II.
And it was very pervy.
Insanely perverted.
Yeah.
If you were wondering if it had to deal with Auschwitz slave labor, it did. For sure did.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
A little known fact, one of the predominant products created in Auschwitz.
Yeah.
Fur coats.
Yeah. and one of the biggest supporters of the Nazi regime, Henry Ford. Not Jeff, but, you know, he could have been a Jeff.
He was similarly driven and had a, I would say, equally interesting success story. I would say it's on even footing with Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff and Henry Ford, two titans of industry.
2 peas in a pod.
Yeah. But yeah, and so in episode 2, we dug more into kind of, you know, the way that the some actors within the American state snuck a bunch of Nazis out of Western Europe towards the end of the war, and how they even tried to get these Nazis to fight the Soviets, even while America was allied to the Soviet Union.
Wow. How devious.
Yep. Yeah, how disgusting.
How just utterly devious.
Yep. And so in today's episode, we will travel back to the American Utopia of the 40s, and we'll get into the 50s of America here. But first, I wanted to kind of go back a little bit into 1917 in Russia, just to maybe get into more about why it is that, or how it makes so much fucking sense that America would, you know, stab one of their lifelong allies in the back like that.
Sure.
So at first, you know, as Michael Parenti said in his 1970 book, The Anti-Communist Impulse, quote, "Our fear that communism might someday take over most of the world blinds us to the fact that anti-communism already has."
Right.
And I would say that line is pretty much overall the view that, or, you know, what I'm trying to hammer home with this entire series. So, you know, America was always rabidly anti-communist. And this really goes all the way back to the Bolshevik Revolution of Russia in 1917. So, as an absurdly brief history, for those unaware, or who would just like a quick refresher, well, before the Bolshevik Revolution, Russia was an ally of America. We were allies in World War I, and we would eventually become allies in World War II, despite, you know, a lot of people in America's discontent with that decision.
Right. And this is with the Russian Empire at this point.
Yeah. So it was the Russian Empire, yeah. Which, you know, just the Russian Empire, the Tsar of the Russian Empire was like the first cousin of the King of England.
Yeah, George, was it King George V and Tsar Nicholas II?
Yeah, it was Tsar Nicholas II. I think it was George V. And if I highly suggest people even pause this right now or something, look at pictures of the two of them. They could literally be twin brothers.
Yeah, there are. It's a really shocking example of, like, at this point, you know, the early 20th century, like how inbred European society had become. These guys were like second cousins, or no, they were first.
I think they were first cousins.
They were first cousins.
Yeah, and they looked like brothers. Like they
look
like
identical.
Brothers. Yeah,
yeah. It's
not kind of identical. They could literally be twins.
They look more like each other than I do with my brother. And a lot of people are saying, "Well, Cam, your brother doesn't exist." And it's like, "Well, that's a
your brother
point.
Jeff."
That's a fair point. Jeff's not my brother, and stop accusing me of that. I've never met Jeff. I have never personally met Jeff.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, so
me
like
and my brother Jeff, we look very anyway.
Yeah, but so like World War I really was like, I mean, it was a family affair. It was just a bunch of families, a bunch of different members of family like fighting each other.
Yeah,
over, you know, with all these new toys they had developed. Yeah, scraps. Yeah. It was just cousin. It was cousin magic and it was uncle magic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so while World War I was ongoing, the Tsarist imperial government of the Romanov dynasty was toppled. So at this time, there were many forces vying for power in Russia. The main ones were hardline reactionary monarchist nationalists that were known as the Black Hundreds. And they can really be thought of as proto-fascists.
Okay.
They were anti-Semitic, extremely xenophobic, and they were staunch supporters of the autocratic Romanov dynasty, because the Romanovs at the time, I mean, it was still like a feudal society, really.
Right, yeah. The Russian Empire remained essentially like a medieval feudal state right up until the end.
Yeah, I mean, they were going through like industrial processes, but I mean, it was still like feudal.
Right.
So some of these Black Hundreds did agree that Tsar Nicholas II, who was one of the most truly inept monarchs of the modern era, they some of them did believe that he had to go because of how terrible he was. They just wanted another Romanov to take over.
Right.
And it really can't be said that, like, Tsar Nicholas is, like, the perfect ruler to have if you're trying to stage a revolution, because he was just...
He was
like,
so bad that it's just
every decision he made was arguably the worst one that he could have done in a situation. So then there were other factions. There were Republicans, and these came in various different types. You had the Cadets, the Octobrists, and the Progressivists. Now, these Republicans ranged from everything from, like, constitutional monarchists to even, like, right-wing mild socialists. Although socialist here really needs to be understood outside of the Marxist view and more as, like, right-leaning social democrats.
Sure.
And really this whole group was roughly center-liberal.
Gotcha.
And then there were, of course, the socialists.
Like the real
so
socialists.
What's that?
Is that the real socialists?
Yeah, well, yeah. So these were made up mainly of the Socialist Revolutionaries, which was a party. And this, in the Socialist Revolutionaries themselves were split up as the right SRs and the left SRs, based on, guess what, how left they were. And then there was also the Social Democratic Labor Party, which was split up into Julius Martov's Menshevik faction and Vladimir Lenin's Bolshevik faction.
Hey, I've heard of him.
Yeah. Daddy Vlad.
The fourth
dude.
Beatle.
And also friend of the show, Alex Herbert, dressed up as for Halloween, and it was an amazing costume.
Did he really?
Yeah, dude, it was wicked good.
He's got the look, yeah. We gotta have him back on soon.
Oh, for sure, dude, for sure.
I know he wants to do one of our... Alex, if you're listening, we want to have you back on soon.
Great costume, too.
Yeah, sounds like it. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. So now the revolution in Russia took two parts. The February Revolution came first, and this would be toppled by the October Revolution of later in the year. So at first, the Romanov dynasty was deposed, and dual power was shared by the Provisional Government, which was sort of this, like, nebulous government as the position of the monarchy was not resolved. And then there was the Petrograd Soviet, which was a workers' and soldiers' council. That's basically what Soviet means.
Right.
So after a tumultuous year for this provisional government, Alexander Kerensky came to power at the end of the summer, trying to fix the government as it crumbled under the weight of all the warring factions. And then Daddy Vladimir Lenin, came storming back into Russia from his exile in Finland. Leon Trotsky joined with the Bolsheviks after generally siding with the Mensheviks for years. And the Bolsheviks would come to power and build a country founded on the Soviets. After this, the country plummeted into a civil war. The main factions were the Whites and the Reds. The Reds were, obviously, the Communists, led by the Bolsheviks, but other socialists would join them like the left SRs. And the Whites were led by the Black Hundreds, various liberal factions, non-Bolshevik aligned socialists, and then their ranks were bolstered by the Allies in World War I. So, at the time, once the Soviet Revolution took place, they just called for a general armistice. Done. No more war. We're out of World War I. And the Allies, people who had been, allied with Russia, were like, we need that front for the war. So they invaded Russia in order to try to get them back into the war, and then also to, stop a Soviet, socialist revolution.
Right.
So, it was as a member of the Whites that over 10,000 Americans would land in socialist Russia and fight for 2 years. As Winston Churchill put it, their goal, along with France and Britain, was to, quote, strangle at its birth this new type of country that had never been seen before, built and guarded by the workers with all production publicly owned for the good of all the people in the country. So I really want to hammer this home. The people now in control of Russia were the people that were dying for the Allies for years.
Right.
And they were like, listen, we've been dying for you guys forever. We don't want to do this anymore. We want control. And the people who had been benefiting from their sacrifices were like, fuck you.
Yeah, it was all good and well when you guys were running in front of bullets for us, but we're not interested in you being in charge.
No. You thought that you had a say in this. You don't have a say in this.
Right.
Thanks,
but no thanks.
Yeah. So this, no matter what, was never going to be okay with the European and American patrician families. Yeah. They could accept the Romanov dynasty being toppled, and they could accept the church being kicked out. But they would never, ever, ever accept the repossession of the goods and resources of a country by the workers that made them and that lived on the land. That was never going to be allowed by the noble families of the West. And really understanding what happened in the Soviet Union once the Civil War was over and the USSR was founded really requires the understanding that Russia's former allies invaded them after soldiers and workers that fought alongside them chose to build a new society that benefited those same workers and soldiers. They knew that the capitalists would not allow that type of state to continue, and an invasion again was always a possibility. If the Soviet Union succeeded, what was to stop workers and soldiers from doing the same in America, Britain, or France?
Right.
And, even Premier Nikita Khrushchev, which it's a very much a cancelable offense with some online socialists and whatever, that I think Nikita Khrushchev was a fantastic ruler of the country. I've said it before that I think that his rulership was probably the best time of the Soviet Union.
Yeah, we've talked about that on a few occasions on the show.
Yeah, I know everybody loves Daddy Stalin, but
it's really shocking to me that people do.
Well, they try to revise the history of it.
Sure. Yeah, and I don't know. I just think it's really upsetting that so many modern socialists and communists are doing that, because it's I don't know, man. A lot of that stuff is pretty hard fact. And
yeah, and also you know what I mean, he's a fucking loser. He was a loser.
Well, he was also a lunatic. He was
he was a loser.
You know
what I mean? It was his decision on how to build the price point.
Yeah.
That led to the crumbling of the economy. And people talk about how Khrushchev was a liberalized things or the rightist, but there was nothing he could do once Stalin decided that the price point and the way that the economy would work. And also Stalin was a loser. He backed away from the fight at the last moment, and the way that he treated everything after World War II was what allowed the West to get such a huge head start in the Cold War. But regardless. Anyway, so he would remind the world in 1959. So he was speaking in New York City, and he said, basically, remember the time you sent your troops to quell our revolution.
Right.
So he did that in a speech. So that never left the Soviet consciousness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they were always aware of the fact that the West invested actual lives into trying to ensure that they never came to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And recall, once Russia, outside of all likelihood, survived the Civil War and an invasion by the West, then former parts of Imperial Russia built their own Soviet republics that then joined into one massive multinational country, built by a class and not on race lines, and then somehow survived its infancy and came out into World War II. It was then invaded by Nazi Germany and its old allies. It was invaded by Nazi Germany and its old allies. America and the UK not only allowed the Nazis to ravage them while they were allied, but they even plotted to turn the Nazis against them alone, hoping to break the Union. And then they actually did turn the Nazis against them after the war to subvert them. And and now I'll defend Stalin a bit. For what it's worth, you'll often hear people make a big thing about the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact of 1939, when the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany made a non-aggression pact to partition Poland. So you'll hear a lot of American propaganda. They'll call it an alliance, which it wasn't. It was a non-aggression pact, and it was just to state that neither would invade the other over the Polish partition.
Right.
And the only reason that the Soviet Union had to do that is because they just watched the West leave the Spanish socialists and anarchists out to dry as the country fell into the fascist bloc during the Spanish Civil War. And the Soviets, Stalin himself, actually did aid them against Franco.
Yeah.
And, for everybody who's not aware, Francisco Franco, that was a full-on military coup. The government that was voted in Spain was more left-wing, and Franco was like, nah, fuck that, and then he just took power. So,
oh, God, the Spanish Civil War is so fascinating.
It's
I hope
insane,
that one day we do an episode, or, several.
Probably a few. It'll probably have to be a few.
It's kind of unlike any other...
Yeah.
I mean, we call it fascist now in hindsight, but it really was...
Often people will call it Francoist.
Yeah, and what's interesting about Franco is, his approach to control of the country was very different from, a Mussolini or a Hitler. There were obviously, massive human rights abuses and mass casualties and stuff, but he changed... He was flexible, and he changed a lot between the 30s and the 70s. I think it was the 70s when he died.
Yeah,
finally.
the 70s when he died, and then they bombed his successor.
Yeah, well, because by the time that he died, he was like, yeah, there's not going to be another one of me. We're not going to do a dictatorship forever. He had this idea that he was going to reform Spain, and then once he died, it would just be a monarchy again. And it's just interesting. It almost feels like an old like a Gaius Marius or something like that. Like, it's like a very old, like a Roman approach to, quote unquote dictatorship, where it's like, yeah, I'm going to do this. It's going to last precisely my lifetime. And then hopefully by the time I die, like, I'll leave something behind. And he did a lot of fucked up shit to get there. But anyway, I'm not a pro Franco guy, but it's an interesting time period.
But no, and to more of what you said, you like all of the like fascist countries and shit like that. There's a reason we call them different things. Like Portugal, like Salazarist Portugal, usually call it corporatist. Yeah, it's not fascist is like really what Italy was. Nazi was Germany. Francoist was Spain, and corporatist was Portugal. Right. Because there are all these differences with them.
There are lots of differences. And they all get lumped in as being fascist in hindsight. But, really.
Because broadly speaking,
Right. And right now, in hindsight, we're able to sort of say, here, there are enough similarities, like, let's just call them what we call them. They're all Nazis in their own way, but...
Yeah, they all deserve the wall, but...
Absolutely. And so, like, just to reiterate, I'm not, like, a pro-Franco guy. I just find Franco's Spain really interesting because there were... It sucks to say, but like there were benefits to his regime. He turned that country around. He just took a real fucking bad way to do it. He was a piece of shit, and anyway.
Yeah, but so anyway, as I was saying, so part of the reason that Stalin made that non-aggression pact with the Nazis was because he just watched the West leave Spain high and dry. Yeah, and he was like, all right, shit's about to pop off in Europe, and I need to secure somewhere on my border.
Right. Some place has to be.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to give that kind of brief background, maybe to give more understanding to America's views of the Soviet Union.
Sure.
So anyway, let's get back to our old friend Alan Dulles. Let's return to him in the world he had cultivated in barren Switzerland at the end of World War II. So Dulles' wife was she was a woman mainly unconcerned with his work and what he did in his personal life, as over the years she had come to the realization that he was an uncaring, cold man whose entire conception of human interaction was transactional. He was either getting info from you, and this was generally his talks with men, or enjoyed the feeling of power he got boasting with women. He was also a notorious fuckboy. like he just like dicked some broads down.
Cool.
Yep.
That's a way to say it, for sure.
Yeah. He dicked some folks down. Yep. Yeah. So anyway, while in Switzerland, he had taken a mistress named Mary Bancroft. And his wife Clover knew about it and was okay with it. In fact, the two women would become fast friends, despite them being kind of both objects of Dulles' affections, which is kind of weird to me.
I mean,
So Bancroft,
that was their polycule.
Yeah, you. The Alan Dulles polycule, dude. That's fucking so disgusting. You kidding, man. So Mary Bancroft would go on to become something of an honorary spy for Dulles, as she knew how to play the game and she tapped into the secret homosexual underground of both the Allied and Axis camps, and she could move in those circles to get information from Dulles, or for Dulles.
Hell yeah. That sounds like a really cool underground.
Yeah.
The secret homosexual underground? Nice.
Of both the Allies and the Axis? Yeah.
What a world to fucking maneuver through.
Yeah. So both Bancroft and Clover saw a psychotherapist, a strange man some of you may have heard of before, Carl Jung, spelled Jung, if anybody's wondering, but it's Jung. And he was plenty familiar with both Mussolini and Hitler. So with Mussolini, he saw a warm and outgoing man whom he called homely. But with Hitler, he was scared and even held him in some mystical esteem, him and everybody else, seeing him as almost the incarnation of the German spirit, like some deity in mortal form that took on the life of the German nation. He was horrified by him, but found it impossible to look away. He once described Hitler as a mask like a robot, or a mask of a robot. He seemed as if he might be the double of a real person, and that Hitler the man might perhaps be hiding inside like an appendix, and deliberately so hiding in order not to disturb the mechanism.
Fuck.
Like, dude, that's... Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a way to describe someone.
It's a way to be, for sure, yeah.
Yeah. So Dulles was infatuated with Jung's insights, especially into Hitler. I'm sure. And for this, he kept Mary Bancroft as a go-between. For her part, she was infatuated herself with Dulles. Both had total moral flexibility, which they would both admit was necessary for espionage. However, Mary Bancroft would be unnerved when she brought up Dulles' peculiar, open and trusting stance at times with people, even ones he was suspicious of or had the goods on. As he replied, this is one of the most... If you ever hear somebody say what I'm about to say or anything like it, just immediate police. Just immediately turn them in.
Straight to jail.
Yeah, straight to jail. Yeah. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200, dude. Fucking just straight to jail, man.
Straight to jail.
Yeah. I like to watch the little mice sniffing at the cheese just before they venture into the little trap. I like to see their expressions when it snaps shut, breaking their little necks.
I mean, I'm hard. Like, I don't...
Believe it or not, straight to jail.
I don't know, man. I find that pretty compelling. Compelling.
Yeah, compelling. So Jung would go on to tell Mary Bancroft that, despite her love for Alan Dulles, he was incapable of truly loving her back. Really. Even his own daughter, Joan, suffered through 2 loveless marriages for her father's sake. The second marriage was to a man he would station in Iran, right after he helped coup the government of Mossadegh in order to reinstall Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi in order to spy on the Soviet Union from a bordering country. Which also just, like, when I read that, I was also like, wait, shit, Iran bordered the Soviet Union? Yeah, that's how fucking big the Soviet Union was. Like, sometimes you have to, like, kind of, like, think about it. And also how big Iran is, too.
Yeah, Iran's a huge country.
Yeah. It, like, basically goes from, like, Turkey to Pakistan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Massive.
Yeah, it borders, like, 7 other countries. It's huge.
Yeah. So anyway, for Dulles, the only relationship he had with other people was one of power. Yep, QED. So even as the CIA was just beginning to form and Dulles was back at Sullivan and Cromwell, which, if you will recall, is the law firm he worked for that was really into helping Nazis do Nazi things. Mm-hmm. So the specter of him haunted the communist bloc in Eastern Europe after the end of the war, but before he took over as director of Central Intelligence. So he was officially a civilian until, like, 1952.
Interesting. Okay.
No, wait, no. I think a little bit before then. So definitely through the 40s, I believe, he was still a civilian. And it would be a while before he officially worked for the CIA.
Yeah.
Officially,
right. He's still...
doing a lot of work there.
He's still spooky.
Yeah, he's still spooked up. So one story involved an extended group of people taking prisoner towards the end of Stalin's rule, as his paranoia had fully gripped the Iron Curtain. So Erika Glaser Wallach had walked through the Brandenburg Gate in 1950 into East Germany to look for her adopted father, Noel Field, who had disappeared in Prague a year earlier after accepting a teaching job. His wife Hertha and his younger brother Hermann had also gone missing looking for him. Wallach had escaped Nazi Germany in Francoist Spain and been rescued by the Field family, and none of them had anti-Soviet or anti-communist leanings, and indeed even had some connections to the communists now in control in Eastern Europe. Yet all of them found themselves taken into prison and tortured by their captives, and one question always came up. How do you know Alan Dulles? Noel Field was taken in 1949, 4 years after Dulles had left Switzerland and ostensibly returned to private life.
Wow.
So in fact, Dulles had worked with the Senate Armed Services Committee to help design the centralized intelligence apparatus that would be used as the basis for the CIA. And then in 1948, Thomas E. Dewey was the GOP frontrunner for president, and it looked as if Truman did not stand a chance at re-election, being an unworthy successor to FDR in the eyes of New Deal loyalists, for good reason, who now pinned their hopes on Henry Wallace's reemergence. So Wallace was the one-time vice president to FDR in 1941 to 1945, who was beaten at the Democratic National Convention by Truman in achieving renomination for FDR's fourth term. And just if I can, as an aside, I really think like this is like one of the moments in history that like if he had won re-election as vice president, like I think like this could have been an entirely different course of century.
Really?
Because I mean, Henry Wallace was like a hard New Dealer.
Yeah.
And he was also like he was hardline about a détente with the Soviet Union. You know, he was like, these are our fucking allies. Like, why are we going against them? He, like, never bought... Right. He eventually, in the 50s, would recant, say, oh, the Soviet Union's evil. But I think it was more because that was during McCarthyism, and he was trying to get back into politics.
Right. Trying to kind of salvage, like, whatever opportunity he had to get back into the system, and
But even after, like, the Cold War had started, he was still saying, like, why are we fucking doing this shit?
Right.
Like, you know, I mean, he was a hard New Dealer. But yeah, he was beaten by Truman in achieving renomination for FDR's fourth term. And Truman is a very, very, very conservative Democrat.
Yeah.
So Wallace was challenging now in 1948 Truman from the left as an independent. I think he was in the Progressive Party. So Dewey was already outfitting his cabinet before the election. He's the Republican. And John Foster Dulles was being tapped for Secretary of State, and Alan Dulles as DCI, which is Director of Central Intelligence. So at this point, Wallace was still pro-Soviet, and John Foster, believed the U.S. and the USSR could come to an accord to halt the nascent Cold War. So he was actually against his brother in this. But, you know, Alan Dulles would eventually beat that out of his older brother. After Truman founded the CIA and the National Security Act of 1947, Dulles began plotting ways for it to subvert the office of the president. Like, immediately, his view was that this would become the actual power in the country, not the president.
Interesting.
So Truman initially wanted it to be subservient to the president just to give him intelligence, you know, so he can make his decisions. But
Which
Dulles
would make
believed
sense,
it.
Yeah. It's almost like a little like a Praetorian
It's called the
Guard,
Central Intelligence Agency, yeah.
Right.
But Dulles believed its true power lay in its unlimited ability to subvert authority and the law. With Truman's position weak due to the 1948 election, Dulles was able to begin consolidating power before he was even in the agency. Of course, he always claimed everything he did was under the auspices that the KGB and the intelligence forces of the Eastern Bloc were even more brutal, more ruthless, more powerful. But this was never the case, and I doubt Dulles actually believed it, you know?
Right, yeah.
Like, he knew what was going on.
Right, exactly.
Like, he's a fucking liar. Like, just like every other spook that's ever lived, he's a fucking liar.
That's his primary skill. That's his main qualification for doing what he does.
Yeah, he's
is
not
that he can lie to himself so convincingly that he starts to believe the truth.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, that he's actually a hero doing things for the good of the country.
Right.
You know? So,
what a nice thought.
Yeah, fuck that guy. So in March of 1948, the CIA began its long track record of regime change with some heavy influence in the 1948 Italian election in April. So our old friend, who I mentioned a bit in the last episode, James Jesus Angleton, who I like to call James Jesus, or Jimmy Jesus.
JJ?
Yeah, Jimmy Jesus Angleton. He flew into the U.S. to give his thoughts to Dulles. So he was still in like Italy at the time. He
Sure.
stayed there for a while, and dude, his story's crazy. I'll get into it in later eps. But James Jesus Angleton is such a fucking freak. So he believed that the Italian communists were on the verge of defeating the Christian Democrats in Italy. The Christian Democrats are like the center, like liberal party.
Gotcha.
So, namely, he believed that the so the Italian communists were on the verge of defeating the DC, and he believed something needed to be done immediately. So, Angleton, Dulles, and Jim Forrestal, who was Truman's defense secretary and Dulles' ally, began flying in massive amounts of dark money into Italy. So millions of American dollars traveled over the border and made their way into the DC's hands in duffel bags, and they defeated the communists. But then Truman defeated Dewey, and Dulles was back on the way out as Forrestal was ousted. And then Forrestal would actually be institutionalized after a mental breakdown and commit suicide a year later.
Jesus.
Yeah. So then in 1949, Dulles was able to found the National Committee for Free Europe, a, quote, private philanthropic group. I'm gonna hit the spook alarms there. Yeah. Yep, that's right. So this was really an anti-communist CIA front that financed propaganda in post-war Europe, such as Radio Free Europe, a broadcasting nonprofit used to promote propaganda. So anytime you hear, especially in the 20th century, things about Free Europe or Free Asia, right, or the National Committee for these, or in talking about how things are private philanthropic groups, it is 100% of the time spook shit. It is spooked up to the absolute fucking gills, dude. Like, that shit is CIA front to back.
Yeah.
100% of times. If it's not CIA, it's fucking MI6. Right. It is always
some Western intelligence agency just flexing its muscle.
Yes, it always is. And that's what they call it, so that people don't ask questions or like morons will be like, they're just philanthropic.
It's an international philanthropic interest organization.
Yeah, called that they just promote they just blast broadcasts into communist Europe.
It's about freedom, man.
Yeah, freedom casts. So at least $2 million used in this project was, guess what, Nazi fucking gold, taken from the Jews at the Holocaust that Dulles had gotten a hold of.
Christ.
Like, it always comes back to this shit, literally
Nazi
every time.
Gold, man.
Yeah. So Dulles helped create an intelligence outpost buried within the State Department called the Office of Policy Coordination. So this was intentionally vague and boring, but led by fellow Wall Street lawyer turned spook Frank Wisner. So the OPC would grow to a massive size by 1952 and was a shadow intelligence organization run by Dulles and Wisner outside of the CIA, often without Truman even being aware that it was a thing or what it was, doing. So they would operate routinely within the borders of U.S. allies in Europe. It was his own shadow CIA.
That rocks.
Yeah.
I would love to have my own shadow CIA.
How do you get to the point that you can create that part of the government? Like,
well, it's you know what it sounds like to me? It's like the precedent for a lot of this stuff just didn't exist. And so he was just like willing to...
Who's going to stop me?
Right. He's like, listen, until somebody tells me that we can't do that. No one ever said I couldn't do this.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I didn't know that it wasn't allowed. Where in the law does it say? Okay, yeah, if you make a new law, no problem. I'll
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll get out of
the
Belgium.
OPC,
I'll leave Belgium. I'll leave Belgium. Okay, guys? On to Luxembourg. So, in 1949, British intelligence alerted Dulles that one of his wartime assets, Noel Field, let's go back to them, was on his way.
This keeps reminding me of Noel Fielding.
Yes, you and me both. Every time I was reading this, I would say Noel Fielding, and then I would just think, the mighty Boosh.
Well, now, the Great British Baking Show. Did you know that?
Oh, no.
He's the co-host of, like, one of the most popular...
Oh, he's back doing things again?
Yeah, I mean, he's always done, like, panel shows and stuff, which are really big there. They're not big here.
He, like, kind of disappeared for a bit.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
no, he's for 2 or 3 years now. He's been one of the hosts of the Great British Baking Show, and he's fabulous. I don't watch that show too often, but occasionally it's actually a very relaxing show. British cooking shows are like way better than American cooking shows because they're not like all about like high drama. They're just like, Well,
just like crazy, cut different angles, just cut camera cuts and shit.
And there's like, you've got to run and grab the ingredients and do it in a set time. Gordon Ramsay's yelling at you. It's like, no, they're just like,
and then in reality, it was like a very nice slow pace while they were filming it, but then they just keep cutting the camera.
Right. And so with the Great British Bake Show, it's like, well, that's a fabulous cream tart you've created. Why don't you walk us through your ingredients? And it's just like, well, this is lovely.
It's just nice, yeah.
It does look delicious. I'd love to hear how she made it. And that's the whole thing. And he's just on there making occasional slightly off-color jokes because you can get away with a lot more. I feel like on British TV, they just don't revel in it in the same way that we would. Yeah. Anyway, this is a random unpaid sponsorship for the Great British Baking Show, now starring Noel Fielding.
See, the only British food shows I like are specifically the Wigan Kebab.
Oh, dude.
Dude, that fucking video.
When he slaps the fucking pea wet. Is that what it is?
No, when they ask him, he's like, what's smack bomb pea wet? And the guy's like, well, smack bomb pea wet.
Yeah.
He's just
what do you mean?
shocked. Yeah.
And it's it's like a hash brown with a fucking bunch of just the juice from peas on it.
Yeah, it's like a smashed up potato, deep fried, and then it's the wet of the peas, not the pea. A few peas get in, and then it's just on
it's 60p.
A buttered toasty, you know?
Yeah, it's not even a pound. It's 60p for smack bar.
Yeah, 60 pence. Yeah, it's for kids.
Yeah, the kids love it.
Yeah, and then they have the one that's Babby's Head. Then they say, it's Babby's Head. It's like, why is it called Babby's Head? And it's because when you crack into it, it looks like you crack into
just you smacked a fucking baby's head open. Nice. All right.
Great. We're here for the Wigan Kebab. Which honestly, dude, I would
the Wigan Kebab looked really good. I don't even remember what it was, but it's
it is a fried meat pie in between buttered bread. You eat a meat pie sandwich, and honestly, dude,
okay, got it.
I would slam that shit down.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. If you're drunk or high enough, all that shit sounds good.
If I ever go to the UK,
I'd eat the pea wet, dude.
I'm going to the north. I'm getting a fucking Wigan Kebab.
The UK sucks, but you should go there. Not all of the UK sucks. England sucks, dude. Don't go. You go there, but England sucks.
Oh, yeah, it would be, tight to go to, Wales and Scotland and shit.
I've got a lot of family that lives there, and they would probably have a million examples of, why I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, which is,
yeah. And to be fair, we live in America, which is also just as shitty.
Well, so here's the thing, man. Here was my limited experience of the UK. It's that, the US and the UK are shitty in a lot of the same ways. The one thing we have over them is that we're just, way bigger, and there's just nice places to drive to and see.
Yeah.
And they have that, too, just not as much.
Yeah.
It's just not, there's just not as much nice scenery compared to the dystopia.
I mean, it's as densely populated as the northeast of the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean New England?
The whole country. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just the whole country. You can't just, fuck off out west or something, you know?
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah. Anyway, so I don't even remember where I was.
You were in 1949.
Yeah, I read. Okay, yeah. So, yeah.
Although I guess we shouldn't start over there because we already talked about Noel Fielding, and then the whole thing is going to be fucking weird.
So anyway, back on track. So,
all right, making a podcast.
Yeah, that's right. There's a narrative here. So Noel Field was on his way to Prague in the Eastern Bloc to take a teaching job. So Wisner had acquired a double agent inside Poland who was instructed to spread the word throughout the Eastern Bloc that Field was actually an agent under the control of his old spy master Alan Dulles, and he was to sow discord throughout the East. Mm-hmm. Field was not a spy at this point. He did work for Dulles for the OSS in World War II, but he wasn't at this time.
Gotcha.
He was just taking a teaching job. So this is not true, but Dulles and Wisner had hatched the plot to sow a seed of doubt in Stalin's mind that would weaken the Soviet Empire. So this was named Operation Splinter Factor, and it was entirely using one of Dulles' old allies as a pawn, knowing the family would be wrapped up in the geopolitical intrigue as Stalin, here at the end of his life, and just completely gripped in paranoia. Yeah.
So he was by the end, Stalin was fucking...
Yeah, so he was panicking at this point because Yugoslavia, which was communist, led by Josip Broz Tito, had just turned away from him. So they had a big falling out. And Stalin apparently tried to assassinate Tito a bunch of times.
Apparently,
and finally
times,
Tito
right?
just sends him a letter. He's like, if you send one more assassin after me, because they had caught him each time.
Yeah.
He's like, if you send one more, I'm going to send one to Moscow, and he's not going to miss.
Yeah.
And Stalin finally was like, okay, fine. Yeah. Yeah, Tito's like... Oh,
have you met the people that live down here? Yeah, no.
Yeah. I'm in the Balkans, dog.
We're fucked. I'll kill you, man.
Our entire history is us killing the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
Like,
remember Vlad the Impaler, folks?
Yeah.
That's who we're talking about.
Yeah. Tito's just such a G. I love that guy. He's awesome.
He was not a slouch, I will say that.
Oh, yeah. And he was apparently the only person who could stop the Balkans from genociding each other. Because the second he died, they were like, well, here I go. Sure am genociding each other again.
What was it? Was hi, my name's Crumbopulous Michael. I'm an assassin. I buy guns from your grandfather. Well, here I go killing again.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, we don't need to just reference other people's jokes, but
yeah. So now the Field family, not the Fielding family, but the Field family was a collection of do-gooder Quaker pacifists, and Knoll himself was a utopian communist that had done work with the Soviet Union before the war. So he believed the Bolshevik Revolution was the start of a world that would one day know no war or greed. So he had known Dulles since he, i.e. Knoll, was a young man around World War I, and he would eventually work for the OSS while he lived in Switzerland in World War II, but his true loyalties had always been with communism. Mm-hmm. One possible reason, however, for Knoll Field being used this way by Dulles was that he had won over a few on Dulles while with the OSS in World War II. And Dulles don't like that shit.
Yeah, he doesn't like to have... Yeah,
So, as an agent for the U.S. and a communist, Field was able to place a lot of communists into powerful positions in Eastern Europe during the war while the Allies advanced. Like, kind of, sort of like advanced scouting and shit like that, and just paving the way for the Allies. And this was something that helped pave the way for communism to get such a foothold in these countries and have them become part of the Soviet bloc. Now, he wasn't doing this to get things over on people. It was just he was told to put people in positions, and he chose communists. Sure. And for Dulles, this was a grave personal affront to his own dignity. Fucking narcissist piece of shit. So Herman, which is Knoll's brother, was just a pacifist Quaker, not even a communist.
Right.
And Herta shared in Knoll's ideals. So Dulles, who had worked with the young Knoll with him as an adult, just saw them as useful pawns, and he fed them to Stalin. So Stalin, again, here at the end, ever willing to fall prey to American plots. This is why I call him a fucking loser, because he did this every fucking time. Always bit the goddamn bait. He started wreaking havoc across Eastern Europe, killing thousands and damaging like the economies of some of his client countries, just tearing them down, looking for these like American spies. Mm-hmm. So once Stalin did die in 1953, Erika Wallach was freed and released to the Soviet security forces, who did their best to rectify the evil she underwent. So they offered her money and their apologies. She was brought to East Berlin. She was put on a taxi to the west. The Fields were also released along with Erika. So Knoll and Herta actually remained in Hungary in the communist bloc. They're like, no, we'll stay right here. Once they were released. And they were compensated in money and medical expenses for their mistreatment, as well as Herman, who was compensated in money and medical treatment. And so the agent in charge of this betrayal, the Polish guy, who was Józef Światło of Poland, he defected to the West after doing Dulles' bidding. He was a double agent. Mm-hmm. So Knoll himself was more hurt by Dulles' betrayal of him than the suffering by his comrades' hands. And he would dismiss them almost immediately. It was like, there was just a Stalinist aberration. And Wallach would apparently suffer more mistreatment by the U.S. for 2 years as she was, trying to re-enter the country. They just, tortured her some more. So it's just like, what the fuck, man? Like, these poor people.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah. So for his part, Sviatlo became a common voice on Radio Free Europe.
Radio Free Europe, baby.
broadcasting his humanitarian messages despite, as when he was an agent, he was known as the Butcher for his proclivity to torture.
That's a dope nickname.
But this is what America means when they say, oh, free and open societies, it's humanitarian. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's all bullshit. So, other Eastern Europeans at this time could be found in the United States at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. They were being trained by Green Berets and learning how to engage in guerrilla warfare, apparently in hopes of using them in their home countries. And some elite militias were also being trained in West Germany. That's just a little foreshadowing for some stuff we'll talk about in the future.
Love it.
So now let's talk about one of the most famous Americans of this century, Old Tricky Dick. Tricky Dick Nixon.
Sorry, it sounded like the cat was trying to open the door. I think she probably was, but...
Let the cat in.
No. No, because I've told you before, there's dried flowers in here. She just eats them and then throws them up. It's not like... she comes in, literally beelines it for the flowers, tries to eat the flowers, then throws up. Like,
finally some good fucking food.
Yeah, there's never... I've tried it. There's never a change to the routine. She comes in here, she goes straight for the fucking flowers, she knocks the vase off the thing, it never breaks. Yeah. She's good like that, and then she eats a rose and then throws it all up. And nice. I'm just not... We're just not going to do that.
Swag.
Yeah, she's just not allowed in this room because I like the flowers. I'm not getting rid of them.
All right. So let's bring our attention to Tricky Dick Nixon, old Richard Milhouse Nixon.
Not a crook, by the way.
Not a crook. No. Very, very.
No.
Very, very trustworthy.
Upstanding, respectable American.
Yep. So Dick Nixon was a Republican from Southern California who had dreams of working with Dulles for Sullivan and Cromwell. But out of law school, they saw no use for the West Coast boy as they clung to the Yankees of the Northeast.
Hell yeah.
These are the WASP, Ivy League types like Dulles. They stuck together.
Yep.
So Nixon became a congressman, and the people who brought him to power cautioned him against supporting the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe. But here, 10 years later, he found himself with Dulles as this East Coast GOP man convinced Nixon to join him as he had plans to siphon money from the doctrine to execute his clandestine Cold War, much to the chagrin of those who had brought Nixon to power. For those who don't know, the Marshall Plan was the United States' plan to rebuild Western Europe, spend a shit bunch of money, and obviously get a foothold in all those countries.
Sure, we're gonna get to build some military bases. We're gonna get.
It wasn't free money.
Yeah, it never is.
Yeah, for America, they were like,
"We're gonna do this.
Free real estate.
It's our decision, but also, what are we gonna get?"
Yeah,
we got
it's free real estate.
We saved you. Remember when we saved you? What are we gonna get?
Well, you not you don't want to be my friend?
We're gonna put.
You wanted to be my friend then.
Listen, one day I might come to you asking you for a favor. Okay, but
and that day may never come.
It's gonna come. That day may never come.
I understand. You're from paradise in America. Yeah, if an honest man such as yourself would make enemies, then they would be my enemies. Yeah.
Oh man.
Anyway, so Nixon's abandoning of his old allies and becoming a powerful tool of Dulles and his king-making group was what sealed Nixon's consistent rise in stature and made him such a powerful player and cold warrior. So Nixon would also be used by Dulles and his circle to combat the out-of-control McCarthyism that sought to damage those who had begun the anti-communist crusade as they lost control of their monster. So, Dulles and his circle started this anti-communist crusade, and then it kind of got out of hand, and their monster sort of went out of control, with right. McCarthy. And they started to find themselves in, the crosshairs. So Nixon was kind of like their, the ace in the hole, So, the first time the two of, Dulles and Nixon came into contact was actually before this, though. It was in 1945, while Nixon was in the Navy. He apparently came across some damning documents about Dulles' Nazi collaboration, and Dulles said, in return for keeping quiet, Dulles financed Nixon's first campaign against Jerry Voorhees. So Nixon was always huge shrewd.
What, gubernatorial campaign?
No, this is congressional. Wait,
so
Which one was first? No, because this was definitely a congressional campaign. Okay. Yeah.
And then later he would go on to become governor of California, right? Was he?
I'm not sure that he was governor.
Why did I think
No, he was never governor. Are you thinking of Ronald Reagan?
I know Ronald Reagan was, but I thought...
Yeah, no, Nixon wasn't. He was a congressman, then a senator, then vice president, and president. Yeah, because he did them all in order. He was like, I think one of the only people ever that like just did it in order like that.
Oh. He ran for governor, but lost.
When was this?
Right after he lost to Kennedy.
Oh, okay.
So when he lost the presidency in that first election, he then unsuccessfully, 2 years later, tried to run for governor of California. But no, you're right. I think I was just getting him confused with Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, Nixon was always shrewd, so he saw this shit, implicating Dulles as a Nazi collaborator, and he went, I could keep quiet, And Dulles was like, I could make you a good friend, Yeah. And, so Dulles financed Nixon's campaign against Jerry Voorhees. So Voorhees himself was an enemy of Dulles, constantly foiling the banks and oil companies' plans as a New Dealer, and he even worked to show how Sullivan and Cromwell collaborated with I.G. Farben and other Nazi cartels. Voorhees himself, at least younger in life, was a socialist. So Nixon handily defeated Jerry Voorhees, who would forever leave politics after the brutal campaign that saw him attacked constantly as a communist for his policies supporting things such as free school lunches.
Yeah, what a piece
Ain't
of
fucking
shit.
Nothing changed, bro. Ain't nothing fucking changed, brother. Mm-hmm. So after an insanely dirty campaign by Nixon, he openly admitted to consistently lying about Voorhees as he wanted to win.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yep. So now, once in office with the support of the Dulles brothers, Nixon would begin a crusade with the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, or what I like to call WHAC, as they sought to destroy the entire New Deal framework as some Soviet plot to take over America. So this is really, I think, giving away the game a lot for them. It's like, the New Deal was about making sure that people had jobs that paid them money, and that elderly people could live in dignity and retire, that kind of thing. And they were like, this is a Soviet plot to take over America. This is evil, actually. So Nixon he was really shrewd. He made all the right moves at the right time with help from the Dulles brothers, and while keeping them and their circle clear of the target. So among his targets was New Dealer Alger Hiss, who he successfully argued was a Soviet spy, despite not great evidence of it. Although Hiss was tied to former Communist Party of the USA member and Soviet spy Whittaker Chambers through the, shit you not, Pumpkin Papers, which were supposed State Department documents leaked to Chambers by Hiss in the 30s and hidden all this time in a hollowed-out pumpkin at Chambers' home he produced. After the fall of the Soviet Union, no conclusive evidence was discovered that Hiss had worked with the KGB. So
dope.
Fucking the Pumpkin Papers, baby. So HUAC would continue their crusade against the old New Dealers still in government or on its periphery. Many of the champions during FDR's tenure as president found themselves under strict observation by the FBI and in the chambers of HUAC, answering questions about themselves and their friends and just why exactly they wanted to allow the Soviet Union into the post-war financial order. So some of them died right after questioning. Somebody died right after. And others found themselves in jail due to dubious evidence or were guilty by association with others under dubious evidence. It was really just a dark period of American history. Mm-hmm. In one particularly damning web of events, Nixon had received personal bribes amounting to massive sums of money from a Romanian industrialist named Nicolae Malășa, or I'm not even going to bother.
I don't need to even.
Who also had ties to Alan Dulles from the war. Malășa had funded a fascist, anti-Semitic group in Romania named the Iron Guard that had led a pogrom so heinous it frightened other fascists.
That's how you know that you've done a bad pogrom.
Yeah.
The other fucking anti-Semites are like, dude, Jesus Christ. Like,
God damn.
Cool over there? Holy shit.
Yeah. So they marched into Bucharest, rounded up thousands of Jews, and massacred them in a slaughterhouse, including hanging them up while still alive on meat hooks.
Jesus fuck.
And just eviscerating them. So after the Soviet Union drove out the Germans and fascists, Malășa briefly worked with the communists before fleeing to the U.S.
Great.
So for his role in annihilating the New Deal coalition in Washington, Nixon had made powerful friends and benefactors, now committed to continuing his rise. He would find himself winning the vice presidency in 1952 on Dwight D. Eisenhower's ticket. Ike Eisenhower.
I like Ike.
Fucking.
We like Ike.
We do not like Ike.
That's just the buttons. I don't know. He had those famous
Oh,
buttons.
yeah.
I like Ike.
And now Allen Dulles, then second in command at the CIA, was ready to step into the top role and usher in the Dulles Imperium.
Have you heard about the new dance craze? Listen to us, I'm sure you'll be amazed. Big fun to be had by everyone. It's up to you, surely can be done. Young and old are doing it, I'm told. Just one try, and you too will be sold. It's called a freak, they're doing it night and day. Allow us, we'll show you the way. Aw, freak out. You freak, says she. Freak out. Aw, freak out. You freak, says she. Freak out. Aw, freak out.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah.
I don't even know why you needed to change it. You already read it.
Yeah, it's for my own.
Right. Because do you keep these and reread them?
No, God, no. Jesus
Then,
Christ.
then
no.
what? Then what? Okay. Fair enough.
I don't know, dude. Just listen. Let me be a fucking freak on my own, okay?
All right. That's
I worked
fair.
a lot today. Don't.
Yeah. Oh, 13 hours. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Our hard-working American man.
Our big strong boy.
Our big, strong laborer.
Yeah. Strong as an aurochs, man.
Absolutely. Fucking pretty as an aurochs too.
Okay.
Hey,
Pod.
whoa, hey, man,
Whoa,
listen, okay, between
man, don't
friends,
you
we hype each other up, okay? You are a beautiful boy,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry I said what I said.
Thank you. Make Jeff say it too.
I don't have any way of reaching out to Jeff. Sorry.
Okay.
He and I are not in contact.
Okay, Jeff is not
Yeah.
affiliated.
Just by
with this
email,
podcast.
and you know how slow that can be.
Yeah, fucking yeah. Oh,
He sent me that ad by Telegram.
it was
Pony
yeah, one of
Express.
those singing telegrams.
Dear sir or madam, stop. You have been formally requested to read this ad on your radio program. Stop.
Stop. All right. So anyway, I'd like to double back though and get back into those Italian elections
I'll bet.
from 1940. Wait, 19.
There's one thing my boy likes, it's Italian elections. Jeez Louise.
Yeah. Get me fucking rock hard, man.
I'm gonna have to sit down and have myself a Schwuliadel.
Yeah, dude, I got the schvoya down on my pants, dude.
All right, fucking, let's get to it.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, I want to look at them in more detail.
Love
this
it.
was really, honestly, what the fuck, bro? One of the
I'm
first
just busting
six.
your balls.
They're consider them busted, dude. Fucking popped like grapes. So it was one of the. Okay. Refocus. So it was one of the first successful regime change style operations carried out by the nascent American intelligence apparatus. So Tom Clark, American Attorney General, declared in 1948. I can just see.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm trying. I don't know why I'm laughing now. I just am. I'm listening. I'm not. I'm even keeping quiet.
Okay. All right. So Tom Clark. Let's talk about him. So
We're actually doing this.
So he was an American Attorney General, and he declared in 1948 that those who do not believe in the ideology of the United States what the.
Dude, I'm sorry. I don't know what. You start giggling and then I start giggling.
I'm trying to read it. I can see out of the corner of my eye. You're just redhead.
Dude, I'm trying.
shaking.
I'm trying not to. I'm not even making noise until you start. Once you laugh, then I'm fucking
Yeah,
laughing.
but out of the corner of my eye, I just see.
The reddest face you've ever.
Just like a vein in your forehead.
My head just looks like a kid's first hard-on. Like, it's just like...
Oh, God!
That was another thing. My dad said that he doesn't listen that often because we talk too much about jerking off on the show.
Okay. Sorry, Cam's dad.
Yeah, me too, Cam's dad. I'm sorry.
Mr. Cam's dad.
Mr. Cam's dad, I also apologize.
Yeah, all right, so Tom Clark, American Attorney General, declared in 1948 that those who do not believe in the ideology of the United States shall not be allowed to stay in the United States.
If you don't like it, leave.
Yeah, if you don't fucking like it, you can leave.
Why don't you go somewhere else then, hippie?
Yep. So this included Italians who would not be allowed to emigrate to or enter the U.S.
Again, I'm not seeing any problems.
Yeah.
This all sounded pretty good to me.
Yeah. This was one of the tactics used in 1948 to influence the Italian elections. Even being a socialist meant it was illegal to come to the United States. So now the U.S. was scared of Italy falling into the Soviet bloc. I think I've talked about this before, but communism had made its way as far west as East Germany, the Czechoslovak Republic, Hungary, and Yugoslavia, all just near the border of Italy. Mm-hmm. So the Americans were convinced that if the revolution spread into Italy, it would start a chain reaction covering the rest of Western Europe. For them, this must be stopped at all costs. Mm-hmm. So 2 years prior, the Communist Party of Italy, the PCI, and the Socialist Party of Italy, the PSI, had together garnered more votes and more seats in the Constituent Assembly than any other party. But since they ran separate tickets, they had to share the government with the Christian Democrats, the DC, who held the premiership. So the two socialist parties had to settle for ministerial positions. So for 1948, the two parties came together under the Popular Democratic Front, the FDP, and won municipal elections in Pescara in February with a huge increase in support from 2 years ago, with the Christian Democrats dropping well behind them. So this was too much. This too fucked up for the Truman administration to even think about.
Right.
And so the machines of capital were put into full gear to stop the communists from gaining any more power and potentially losing Italy to the Soviet bloc. So it is in this framing that the American bullshit really comes out. The communists were working democratically, and the most fervent anti-fascists on the right were made up of... sorry. Whoop. Let's start that again. It is in this framing that the American bullshit really comes out. The communists were working democratically and the most fervent anti-fascists during the war, and they were gaining popular support. While the Christian Democrats and others on the right were made up of, quote, unreconstructed fascists, they were monarchists, and they were fascist collaborators. None of those really seemed that democratic.
Yeah.
And yet, to the American propaganda machine, the DC was the party of freedom and democracy, while the FDP was called totalitarian and advocating for dictatorship. They were the ones winning the elections.
Right.
So an event occurred in Czechoslovakia in 1948, wherein the non-communist ministers of the cabinet in the country boycotted meetings over disagreements with the communist government, and so the communists dissolved the coalition cabinet and took sole power. This was commonly warned by the U.S. and its Italian allies towards others as to what would happen in the government in communist control. However, 1 year prior, Italian Prime Minister Alcide de Gasperi had visited the U.S. to ask for funds to help rebuild his country. When he returned, he, out of nowhere, dissolved his cabinet to purge the communists and socialists. And then he rebuilt it, but eventually had to include communists and socialists, just not in the key positions they once held. Seems quite obvious that a quid pro quo was given by the U.S. So this was proven when aid was once again frozen for months until leftists were completely purged from the government. And once he did that, handsome rewards started flowing in.
Wow.
And the country's $1 billion debt to the U.S. was...
just canceled.
Yeah, forgiven.
Almost like it was a form of payment.
Yeah.
For
hey,
goods
we
or
will
services
give you all
rendered.
the money you want if you just get rid of the people who want to make sure, that the resources of Italy are for the Italians.
Now, a lot of people think that this is all related to this whole business we've been talking about, but in reality, that's when the U.S. experienced the Great tomato sauce inundation of 1949. We got so much sauce in the deal.
Yeah, dude.
Listen here, Italy. Okay, you drive a hard bargain, but we can cancel that debt.
Yeah.
But we're gonna need some
fucking
sauce.
They called it the Great Gravy Train of 1949. So something similar happened in France, where Prime Minister Ramadier had to oust communists from his government, and he was quoted as saying, "A little of our independence is departing from us with each loan we obtain from the U.S."
Damn.
So this takes us to the Italian election in 1948, where with 1 month to go, the FDP was on the verge of taking total control of the government, and Time magazine called this the brink of catastrophe. So a huge, a little fucking,
Time magazine,
histrionic
catastrophe
there, Time.
of the year.
Yeah, so a huge letter-writing campaign began with over 10 million pieces of mail in 1 month flowing into Italy from the U.S., many of them pre-written and just needing to be signed by Americans of Italian descent to their family back home. At this time, like 15% of Italians claim to have, like, American relatives.
Right.
It's a pretty big fucking part of the population. This was done from a covert group calling itself, here we go again, dude, spook alarms.
Love it.
Going right in. We're going to need them again. So, yep, the Committee to Aid Democracy in Italy.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, any committee to aid democracy is just trying to kill the ever-loving fuck out of anybody who wants to do left shit.
Yeah.
So special, quote, freedom flights were inaugurated to send the mail. Fucking freedom fries, bro. Yeah. So the letters, this shit's been going on for decades.
We got freedom raviolis over here.
Yeah.
We're airdropping them out of planes.
Yep. So the letters intimated that another world war would happen if Italy voted communist, and that the country would be destroyed and all aid to rebuild the country cut off. Broadcasts were sent into the country by the U.S. explicitly stating that voting communists would not be tolerated in the U.S. Wild Bill Donovan, the guy who made the OSS in World War II.
Wild Bill, that's right.
Yep. So he gave broadcasts saying Russia would ship workers from Italy into the Soviet heartland for forced labor. Like, this was just happening to keep in mind, when people shit their pants about Russian interference in our elections, they're fucking straight up saying in broadcasts, "Oh, you will be a slave."
Yeah.
To Russia. Fucking Russia. It's always Russia.
I mean, and honestly, like, I'd be a slave in Russia. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Straight to Gulag.
Yeah.
Like
hey, joke's on you. I fucking love Gulag.
That's my wet dream, bro.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I enjoy being dominated. I'm a dom. So broadcasts into the country described the communists as Muscovite fifth columns, hoping to break apart the friendship between Italy and America. Anti-Soviet propaganda films were broadcast. So then the UK and the US began to anchor warships off the coast of Italy.
Always a good sign.
Yeah.
This is always a good sign.
And Truman, at the same time, was accusing the Soviet Union of plotting to subjugate Western Europe.
Right.
As the UK and US were mooring warships in their fucking ports.
Well, yeah, because they've already subjugated Western Europe. And they don't want someone to unsubjugate
these are our subjects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. That's all it is.
So military conscription and universal military training was also called for to stop the communist threat in the U.S.
Yeah.
They were talking about restarting conscription with no war going on.
That rules.
So a, quote, friendship train toured the U.S. to gather gifts and then went to Italy to distribute them. The U.S. engaged in diplomatic games to force the Soviet Union into unfavorable situations that would anger Italians, including over the free city of Trieste, a situation delicate to both Italy and Yugoslavia. And you know, one of the funny things about this, if you read any of the primary source shit from the Soviet Union at the time, they're all just like, dude, what the fuck can we do to make the U.S. not think that we're fucking with them?
Yeah.
Or to make them not think that we're trying to do stuff, because they were mortified of it. As we've talked about, the Soviet Union lost like 25 million people in World War II.
Yeah.
They were in no fucking position to fight a war.
Right.
They were desperately trying to rebuild. And, you know,
they're just like, oh shit. How do we convince these guys that we don't want their lunch?
They were our allies. So they were just like giving shit to the U.S. and the U.S. was like, give us more. You know,
give us so much that you collapse. How's that sound? Anything short of that? Yeah, we're still going to spread these rumors.
Yep. So Italian newspapers sympathetic to the U.S. began to en masse publish letters from prominent Americans urging Italians not to vote communist. The OSS and the Mafia in Italy had worked together to stem the tide of communists and the labor unions in Sicily, and then as they spread into Italy proper in 1945, and the CIA continued to subsidize the labor unions in Italy using these methods and lines developed from that time. On top of tens of millions in aid from America, the CIA personally contributed anywhere from $1 million to $10 million to non-communist parties. America also began shipping massive amounts of food to Italy with the message that America was saving Italy from starvation, chaos, and possible domination from outside. So remember the Truman Doctrine of 1947? The U.S. pledged, quote, to support free peoples who are resisting attempted subjugation by armed minorities or by outside pressures. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Black Americans at this time weren't even free people in their own country.
Right. They
weren't even second fucking class citizens.
Yeah, they were being systematically repressed on like just an insane scale.
Yeah, it was an apartheid country.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the U.S. was an apartheid state at this point. Still.
Yeah, absolutely. And, some in the U.S. even decried these policies, including the Italian-American Committee for Free Elections in Italy and the Progressive Party led by Henry Wallace, who wanted legitimate détente. So as for Soviet influence, the FDP was outspent by 7.5 times on propaganda from all other parties, with the DC itself spending more than 4 times as much, just alone.
Yeah.
At first, the Soviets did some feeble work, releasing war prisoners and sending out some newsprint, but they were actually apprehensive even at the FDP winning. They were scared that the FDP would win,
right,
because they didn't want to antagonize the West. In a letter to Josip Broz Tito, this was before the falling out, so he was the leader of Yugoslavia, the Soviets actually reprimanded him because they thought that he was antagonizing the situation. They said it should have been known that the USSR, after such a heavy war, could not start a new one. So they believed that Yugoslavia was trying to get the Soviets involved in Italy. So at the end of the day, the DC would win 48% of the vote, with the FDP winning only 31%. They were destroyed.
Damn.
And what would follow over the coming decades in Italy would show who the real scheming foreign powers, hoping to utilize another country for its own aims, was. The Italian years of lead and Operation Gladio were still to come as America would unleash terror across the countryside.
Holy smokes, man.
Yeah. The Italian Job.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Wahlberg, Jason Statham. Was Jason Statham in The Italian Job?
I don't know. I've never seen that fucking movie.
Oh. I remember liking it when I was like 13, but I bet you I wouldn't now. Yeah, man, we're fucked. We're not a good group of people over here.
We're some bad people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we come from a long line.
We're some bad hombres.
We come from a long line of bad people over here, and we've been doing a lot of fuck shit over in Europe for time immemorial.
We did bad things in the 18th century. Did bad things in 19th century for sure. 20th century, bad things. 21st century, guess what? Still bad.
We're working on some
still
bad things.
brother.
We got a few bad things in our back pocket right now.
Yeah.
Still
if you think that we're not doing bad at this very second, you best believe that we've been doing bad.
But luckily, we were able to ensure an Italy that would still be economically depressed in 2021. But at least they had a fucking porno filmmaker as their president. So, hey, freedom, dude.
Yep. Yep.
Fucking unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
Lots changed in Italy since Tiberius. Name drop. Go back and listen.
Oh yeah, woo, dude. Going back to the single digits. Yeah,
I know, dude. I want to do another Rome episode.
Yeah, me too. I've been thinking about it. Yeah.
I think because I don't know. We've been doing so much like modern history, even with the ones that are like fun, like when we just did G.G. Allen. Which, by the way, thank you guys for listening to that.
Yep.
I think it would be really fun to do another ancient history episode.
I would fucking love to. Yeah, we should do it.
I mean, the oldest I've done recently was Vlad, which is like medieval.
Yeah.
And medieval's
I think
fine, but I'm an ancient
that's
history
the oldest
boy.
in general that we have recently, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the oldest. In the last 20 episodes or so, I would say we've stuck almost exclusively to like the furthest back we've gone is like maybe 19th century.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, other than that, we've been like pretty much exclusively like a modern history podcast. So
yeah, let's go back to our roots.
Let's go back, dude.
Yeah,
I love that shit. I love this shit too, but I love that shit.
Yeah.
Time to do a little old stuff.
Yeah, Rome.
This was great. I find a lot of this spook stuff like really hard to keep on top of. All these storylines are so meandering and they're so like complex. I could never be a spy. I think that's what I've learned.
So one thing I do want to do. So for this episode, I've done this I think for all of these ones, but for this episode, my main sources were The Devil's Chessboard by David Talbot and Killing Hope by William Blum. I brought in some other things too, just online, some smaller things, but those are the two big ones. But yeah, no, with all this like the spy shit, all this like parapolitics, it's it's really crazy because then you like at the expense of me, or maybe hopefully I don't sound like some kind of fucking loon. Like QAnon loon, but you really do like start to see these threads where shit like it's just such clear patterns and things, and you can almost like predict shit that will happen the next a lot when you're reading this. Like you just start seeing like all of these like very like clear sort of patterns.
Yeah, I mean this has Moloch written all over it.
yeah, there's some owl shit going on.
Absolutely.
But I mean, for real, it's very interesting. Just getting reading like a bunch of books about it and stuff like that, and then you can see different takes. Some people that there's like I have this book, where it's like the dude like clearly doesn't get it that like this is the goal, that like that the CIA isn't inept, they're intentionally appear inept so that it's like Sun Tzu shit. When you're strong appear weak, and like So I do like getting to like those different takes of it too.
Yeah, I think
and like even like David Talbot, that dude is very not a communist or a socialist. He's got a lot of bad things to say about it, but but then William Blum, it seems very pro socialism. So
yeah, it definitely seems like you were able to capture like a pretty well rounded set of source material. It's like I think that's the best way to do it too.
I mean, if you know your author's bias, then it gives you like, it makes it much easier to like, really parse out what you need to,
Yeah. Well, thank you. I liked it.
Yeah.
I am going to have to re-listen to it probably 2 more times to fully grasp what the fuck we were talking about, because I go cross-eyed whenever you do these CIA episodes. It's just like so much for my stupid little brain to follow. Yeah. I don't understand how people made this their careers. Like someone like Alan Dulles, who just like ate shit and breathed this stuff just like all day
it was like
and all
the
night
only thing that got his dick hard.
Right, and it's just like, how, man? Like, fuck.
Don't you ever want to like just kind of lay on the couch and like watch a movie, bro? Like,
I know I do.
Yeah, I fucking love that shit.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I don't have anything to add.
No.
I think
so I mean, just the normal plugs. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram. People have been doing that, so that's nice. Keep telling your friends, your family, your coworkers about us. Seems like a lot of people have been doing that lately, and it makes us feel good. Mm-hmm. And the more people you tell, the bigger we get, the more content we can make.
Oh, I get big when you tell people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Personally.
But anyway, so I'm Evan, joined by my co-host Cam. Yeah,
that's me.
Not Jeff.
Never been Jeff. I don't know why Evan keeps harping on this, but I've actually never met Jeff.
This Jeff fellow. Yeah,
never met him.
Yep.
So,
but so thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
We sure will. You guys have yourselves a fine day.
Freezing cold in ancient shoes old.
You're the cold maze, say one, freezing cold in ancient shoes old. All right.
The color boss dies. Chains in my hand begin to cold. Baby, boss died. Well, it's the same man, you can't be seen. You never tell me, never just God, believe in the shame. You don't come and not choose, not buying, but not sure. Hope, this again, not the cover, no time. Oh, but if it's a stand, light the shoes, go, my man. You've been tough to the man, it's called the radio girls. Oh, for Sunday.
My eyes, my senseless, and he goes so go with diesel. Eyes. You to go, maybe say one reason, call the next and I choose love. Alright.
My eyes, mine senseless, and he goes so go with diesel. Eyes.
Reason, call the next and I choose love. Alright.
Well, I sit on sleeping at the king of the sea. The land that is an up and top, how hard to contain. Left face to go. We can see it in the sand, and the shoes are coming in. There's a 200 cars that over 400 guys to stay. I my chance, let ain't a hill still go and breathe on eyes. You the call and made to say one piece in corner this in I do some alright. You know, you not feel as you can go to the door. That's baby that I still like big yo.